Now that we've discussed comparison operators and logical operators, let's actually discuss conditions, in particular the if then else, and the switch statement. So I'm going to stop our program and going to quickly write some JavaScript code here. So we're going to create a function called rEqual. It's going to take in two parameters, a and b, and it's going to return if a equals b. Okay? So then I can say document.write 5 equal 5 rEqual 5 comma 5. Okay? So I'm simply going to write out to the screen, hey, does 5 equal 5? And then I'm going to print out the result of this function we just made, checking for equality, using the identity operator, saying, does 5 equal 5? So let's run that. And we'll see, does 5 equal 5? It does. It comes back true. Okay? So we're going to use that function. Now I'm going to say, if rEqual 20 and 20, document.write 20 is equal to 20. Okay? So I'm saying, hey, if 20 pass 20 to here and pass 20 there, check if they're equal. If they are, this will be true. And I'm going to print out to the screen 20 is 20. And to clean this up, let me put a document.write br tag. Okay? I'll put another one down here too. Let's run that. And we see, does 5 equal 5? Yes, it does. And it also tells us, hey, 20 is equal to 20, because that code was executed. So here's our if statement. What if we change this, instead of being 20 and 20, we change it to 10 and 20? Okay. Now we can go ahead and say, hey, 10 is equal to 20, right? So if 10 is equal to 20, it should print this out. So let's see. And of course, all we get is 5 is checking if 5 is true, and it is. We did not print out 10 is equal to 20 because it's not, because this returned false. So again, I can say, is 5 greater than 25? And say document.write 5 is bigger than 25. And down here, we'll write another break. Down here and say if 25 is greater than 5, and say document.write 25 is bigger than 5. So when we run this, we know this is going to say 5 is equal to 5, and it's going to append true, because this is what this function's returning. It's returning this condition, which is either going to be a true or false. Okay. Since we're passing in 5 and 5, they are equal, so we're going to get true. This one here is going to check, is 10 and 20 equal? Well, they are not equal, and so it's not going to run anything inside of this block of code. So this will not get printed. It'll print a blank line, and then we're going to say, is 5 greater than 25? Well, 5 is not greater than 25, and so it won't print this fallacy of 5 is bigger than 25, because it's not. Print another blank line, and then we're going to check, is 25 bigger than 5? And it is. So what we should end up on the screen is this line, a blank line, another blank line, another blank line, and finally this. It's not going to write that, nor is it going to write that. So let's run it. And you see 5, several blank lines, and then 25 is bigger than 5. And that's how the if statement works. It's very simplistic. Is it expects a condition. Whatever's inside of these parentheses has to equate to true or false. So again, I can come in here and say if true and 5 is greater than 1 and 25 is greater than 10 and 5 is equal to 5. Document.write. Bunch of stuff is true. Okay? So if true and 5 is greater than 1 and 25 is greater than 10 and 5 is equal to 5, if all those things are true, then we'll get this. And of course all those things are equal to true, and so we get a bunch of stuff is true. And so inside of our if, the condition has to match the conditions we were talking about. And you'll see how we used here our logical operators, and we used our conditional operators, right? We used them together to come up with a bunch of data to say, hey, is all this true? Now, another way you could write that is you could say, hey, if true, right? And again, you typically just wouldn't say if true. you would have some other equation here, just to make it maybe a little more realistic. How about if we said if 5 is greater than 1, if that's true, then I'm going to say if 25 is greater than 10, and if that's true, then I'm going to say, well, and if 5 is equal to 5, I'm going to say document.write, all of them were true. So I got here. Right here we see all of them were true, so I got here. And again, I'm going to copy down a break. Have some line breakage in our output, but you see a bunch of stuff is true. Right? And so we're getting a bunch of stuff is true, because true and true is of course true, and then 5 is greater than 1, that's true, and 25 is greater than 10, and well, that's true, and 5 is equal to 5, right? Since all those things were true, then we write out a bunch of stuff is true. And down here, it's the same thing, but instead of using these logical operators to put them all in the same condition, we're actually doing 3 separate conditions, and this is considered a nested if. Okay? Nested if. So at this point, we've only talked about the if statement, and we've seen we can just pass in a simple condition. We saw we can actually pass in a function, where a function returns a value. Okay? As long as that function returns either true or false, that's all we care about. Now, before I move on, let's take a look at what happens if I say if 5 is greater than 1 and 25 is greater than 100. Let's say document.write. What is wrong with the world? Okay. So 5 is greater than 1, that's true, but 25 is not greater than 100, so that's false, right? So this will not print. And you see, we did not get what is wrong with the world printed out. Okay? Because 25 is not greater than 100. On the flip side, I could say if 5 is greater than 1 or 25 is greater than 100. If either one of those are true, then something here was true. So here I am. So we don't get something's wrong with the world, but we do get something here was true. So here I am. And that's because this is true, that's false, but since it's an OR operator, as long as one of these conditions is true, this code will get executed. So there's our if. Clear out all this code, and we're going to talk about the if else. So I'm going to say if 5 is greater than 1, document.write 5 is bigger than 1. Now I can say else document.write what is wrong with the world. So when we run this, if this is true, then this would get printed. If this is false, then this would get printed. Okay, and we all know that 5 is bigger than 1, so this is what should get printed and not what's wrong with the world. And sure enough, that's what we see. Okay. Let's flip these around and say if 1 is greater than 5, and say I don't think so. Okay. So 1 is bigger than 5. Then we run this. 1 is not bigger than 5. Since 1's not greater than 5, the code that gets executed is in the else. So that's our if-else statement. Again, we have a condition. Same thing holds true. We can have multiple conditions. We can have the logical operators. We can come down here and say, if not, 5 is less than 1. 5 is not less than 1. Else, document.write, 5 is less than 1. And we'll put a line break in here. And when we run this, we'll see that 5 is not less than 1. Okay? Because we put the not in here, and that's how you would do a not. And again, we could, just to drive home the point of the conditions again, we say if 5 is not less than 1, and 1 is greater than 5, right, or we can say not. And as long as 5 is not less than 1, and 1 is not greater than 5, then we'll do the true part. Okay? Otherwise, be down here. We can say or we can do a false and a true together. Okay? So 5 is not less than 1. We can say, and 5 is not equal to 1. Okay? So all those conditions are true. Not 5 is less than 1, and 5 is greater than 1, and 5 is not equal to 1. Then we're going to say 5 is not less than or equal to. How about that? Or equal to 1. Right? Otherwise, you would say 5 is less than 1 is what it would print out. Let's run that and we'll see 5 is not less than or equal to 1. And that's some more review on our conditions and how we can group our conditions together and how the else statement works.